Richard. So good morning, everybody. Nice to join you. My sort of background and my interests are varied. I'm a technologist, a sort of a social scientist by training and education. But really, what I'm interested in is how we can develop new organizational operating systems which use the very positive affordances of digital technology and data to create better structure, culture, practice, leadership, and technology in our organizations. So been working on that topic both on the technology side and the organizational design side, and more recently on the sort of leadership side for many years, actually. And I think what's interesting today is that the COVID lockdowns have really accelerated digital transformation in one very important sense by forcing us to work remotely. But I think the debate is still far too focused on where we work. Is it the home or is it the office, rather than how we work? In other words, are we working via online collaboration and systems, or are we still using the sort of Stone Age tools of emails and meetings and conference calls? And I think this is really key to developing a successful hybrid model. It's not about how many days you're sitting in meeting rooms watching people eat biscuits. It really is, how we can work seamlessly between different physical locations. So this raises the question for me of, what and where is the fabric of our organizations when we are not in the office? Is it, the buildings and the real estate and the physical meeting rooms, or is it the online networks and systems and platforms that we're using to coordinate our work? Now, over the last 2 years, I suppose, I've spent a great deal of time as academic director of some large leadership development programs, and also teaching on some of those programs as well during the pandemic. And I think one of the things I've found is that almost all executives that I'm talking to are pinned to the wall of their schedule by back-to-back Teams calls or Zoom calls. And then in the evening, they tackle the hundreds of corporate spam emails which hit them like a blizzard. And, needless to say, this is a very, very poor way of working. It's incredibly unproductive, and it keeps them in a position which means they're unable to change the system. And I think that's the real challenge that many of these people face. I personally find professional services very interesting, and I've worked in it over the years in many different areas, because professional services firms are often pure knowledge organizations. But the problem is, as long as the revenue pipe is flowing, many of them still don't really have an incentive to truly digitize or develop scalable efficiencies. So they sort of continue in this mode whilst platform-based disruptors are nibbling away at important parts of their market. So if you look at accounting or insurance or finance, they're literally made of algorithms, but these algorithms are sort of trapped in Excel files or old enterprise systems, or maybe a PMS or something like that. And if you look at legal, advisory, consulting firms, these are largely constructed from a series of sort of repeatable processes, at least from a sort of 80-20 point of view. And yet their billing model disincentivizes automation and systematization. So they suffer much the same problem. Now, for me, I think the direction of travel, and I think also the starting point for disruptors and startups, is highly automated, connected, and service-oriented backends in these companies, which embody core competencies, core services, repeatable processes are orchestrated on a common sort of platform, but which enables a much more free and agile front-end operation, where people and teams, dealing with customers, can sort of take these service building blocks and construct quite bespoke matters, projects, customer experiences and customer journeys using them. So it's a vision, I think, for the organization, which is both more machine-like at the back end and more automated, but at the same time, more human at the front end, compared to the, what I call the sort of the old model of what's to be a bureaucratic process machine, which is constructed from, often sort of non-premium management meat, if you like. So it's an interesting shift, I think, that we're part of. And I think when you realize that all connected products, connected services, connected experiences really demand a connected company, then you can see the importance of switching from, sort of vertically divided silos and practice areas to something which is very much laterally connected across the firm. Now, I think at the moment, most talented people in firms on the digital side, they know this, but they're sitting below what's effectively, a very sort of marshmallowy socio-political system of middle-aged managers or partners who really, don't want to do the hard work of executing that change because it impacts on them and their role, primarily. So I think if we want to see the kind of combinatorial innovation across practice areas that clients need, if we want to see AI or machine learning or automation or even just basic analytics in areas such as audit, for example, then we really need to overcome the silos and we need to connect our firms in a better way, from the ground up. And I think where this reaches a really fine point actually is around employee experience, because certainly in the United States, there's this sort of great resignation. And I think it was also, in play before the pandemic, to be honest. The employee experience of working in a poorly digitized firm is not an attractive proposition for the brightest and the best young people. So, managing through the Stone Age tools of Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook, or even a sort of a basic PMS, doing nonstop conference calls, and being asked to work in an incredibly bureaucratic but demanding way for years on end before you can sort of reach the pinnacle of sort of associate and then partnership, is just not really an attractive offer at the moment to the brightest and the best young people. Plus, I think in a sense the conveyor belt's a bit stuck. We've got too many generic associate or VP level people who are too grounded in the old ways of working. So there's a lot less opportunity actually for the talented younger people who are perhaps a bit more digitally savvy to get to the top quickly enough to make it all worthwhile. So I think for me, basically the big generational challenge for leaders and managers today is to, think like architects of the digital organization, help it emerge from within the sort of calcified shell of the old bureaucracy that we've sort of taken for granted, and really lay the groundwork for better ways of working. And I think most organizations want to do this, but it's a bit like the old sort of Indian or Arabic story about the blind men and the elephant. The whole picture is eminently knowable, but most people and functions only see the trunk or a tusk or a leg because they're living within silos and very divided swim lanes and specialization. So I think we need also better ways of doing change and better ways of doing continuous improvement, which are not so dependent on the existing management incentives. Because if you want to ask the owners of comfortable CXO budgets to decentralize the existing system, it's a little bit like selling meteors to a dinosaur. It doesn't go well for either party. So I think for me, the change is coming. The lockdowns have certainly accelerated that or brought it to the fore. And I think those of us who influence others and are productive based on the content we create and the outputs we create in the workplace and how we connect them, we will ultimately sort of overtake those who rely only on positional authority or giving good meeting or being physically influential in a meeting room, wearing a nice tie and so on. But until the core fabric of the organization really becomes the sort of online systems that connect us, then I think the persuasive, politically savvy partner with little knowledge of the digital world will continue to hold us back. And I think that's something, maybe Ben will touch on this, but I think this is something we're seeing in all areas of leadership, not just in business. People who can sort of simulate intelligence and tell funny stories. At the moment, for some reason I can't understand, people are valuing them over real domain experts and people that know what they're doing. So I think the institutional challenge of running 21st century institutions using the affordances of digital is ultimately a lot wider than just business and certainly just than professional services. But yeah, it's a really interesting challenge. And as I say, a once in a generation shift. So that's what I sort of spend my time doing. And that's what I'm really interested to sort of read about and study about and research. So yeah, that's what I wanted to sort of share with you this morning.